Hello and welcome to the 42.e Rugby Show. We're live here in Doheny and Nesbitt. My name is Gavan Casey. This is brought to you by Volkswagen. A fine car, Volkswagen. If you're going to buy a car, make it a Volkswagen. I am joined tonight by two very special guests. The first one, I mean, look, were it not for injury, God knows where rugby might have taken this man. I mean, when he did step away from the Irish rugby scene, there was a 6-month period of mourning in the 42 comments section. It was really difficult to get over, but I'd just like to, for you guys, to give him a big welcome. It's Mr. Murray Kinsella.
Thank you, Gavin. Thank you very much.
More of that, other things. Our main guest tonight doesn't need much of an introduction, but I can say that he is the man who did this. He drives a Volkswagen, is all I'm trying to say. Are we providing the commentary? Or there he is, like a teddy bear. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome Stephen Ferris? Well, big man, how are you getting on?
Not too bad, yeah. Good times, 2011 World Cup, nobody gave us a chance against Australia. What a tournament. Unfortunately we slipped up against Wales, but yeah, I'm good. Obviously hung the boots up now. It's hard to believe it's coming up 4 years at the end of this season. Like, I ended up hanging the boots up when I was 28, injured myself when I was 26. So yeah, that's the way it goes, but very privileged to have played the game of rugby for so many years professionally, and just a mad Irish, Ulster and Irish supporter now, getting behind the boys, and it's just brilliant to see them Irish rugby, and I think everybody would agree on a crest of a wave at the minute, so it's I'm great, thanks.
The foreword to your book is written by none other than Rory McIlroy. I'm talking, of course, about Stephen Ferris.
You can get it at easons.com/Ferris.
It's actually the second best Irish sports book written in the last couple of years. You might have seen the best one there just as you came in the door. But the foreword is written by Rory McIlroy. He says, "I always felt it was inevitable that someone so physical would end his career earlier than others. It is more likely that players like him, who make big plays, land the huge hits, will suffer a physical toll. I would liken Stephen to a finely tuned Ferrari or a racehorse. They are likely to break down more, but it is only because they perform so close to the edge and are pushing limits all the time." That was Rory McIlroy. I mean, libelous comments against Ferrari, of course. Famously, Volkswagens don't break down. But is it something that you would have been cognizant of yourself when you were playing, that because of the, I suppose, ferocity with which you played, that maybe your career was going to at some point come to an end prematurely?
You're mentioning my limited company name and everything, Ferocity Limited. Thank you very much.
That was intentional,
yeah, intentional.
Ferocity. We're also brought to you by Ferocity.
Yeah, like, I played the game, and I've said this numerous times, people may have heard it, like, it didn't matter if it was Edinburgh on a Friday night at Ravenhill or Kingspan as it is now, or if it was in a Grand Slam decider against Wales in 2009 in Millennium Stadium. I played 100 miles an hour all the time. Why? Because I enjoyed playing like that. And if I turn back the clock and go, what would I have done differently? You know, not too much. A few of the injuries that I received over the years was, you know, real accidental kind of stuff. I remember playing against one of the Italian teams, standing there at the side of the scrum. We got a pushover try, and I was standing with my hand in the air, cheering the lads on, and their tight head prop just came around and fell, and my knee was slightly flexed, and he fell into me. Like, that's just unlucky. Do you know, that's not me absolutely piling into somebody and getting tackled badly. So that was before the 2011 World Cup. I was out for 6 months with injury with that. Again, that Friday night, 2nd November 2012, and it was actually against Edinburgh. And I just actually jumped up to catch a high ball, caught the high ball, went over my ankle slightly, and felt it just like jar. And I got a bit of treatment, just ran it off as you do. 10 minutes later, just stepped off it, and one guy hit me high, one guy hit me low, and done serious damage. And I knew as soon as it happened that I was in a world of pain, a world of difficulty, because the swelling didn't go down, I'd say, for about 9 months. Like, it was just, if anybody's seen any pictures of my ankle on Instagram, like, it was black, like, it really was, numerous scans, everything, and they couldn't determine what the injury was at the time, because there was just so much swelling in the joint. So long story short, you know, 3 operations later to try and fix it, I ended up getting bone taken away, tendons put back in, bone over the all the rest of it, and I tried to make a comeback. That game against Scarlets where I come on and made a big hit, but before I took the pitch I knew my rugby career was over. I knew it was coming to an end, and it's pretty difficult to get your head around, like, you know. But if I was to go back to your question there, I love playing, I love running around smashing people, and I love, that's what I got so much out of the game of rugby, was that feeling of trying to be the best player on the pitch every single time you take it. And people judge me on my performances nearly every game I played. I played and people were kind of talking about me after the game, and I really, really liked that. But yeah, it all came to an end on that night in 2012 when I busted myself.
Do you ever look at it now and think, maybe a match last weekend, how would I do in that game? How would I do in a Joe Schmidt team? Have you ever thought about that?
I don't think me and Joe would have got on, to be honest. I know we're probably going to touch on it, but he's very, very structured. I was kind of given a bit of a free role. You know, if I seen an opportunity to get out of the line and take somebody out, or you know, when I was carrying, I threw an offload, and there was a couple of games, I think, against Italy, Peter Romani's first cap. I made 2 or 3 different line breaks. 3 or 4 of those offloads went to hand, 1 maybe didn't, and like, coming from camp now, if offloads don't go to hand, you know, Joe was really unhappy, and it's all about playing the percentages and everything else. We all know that. But yeah, I'm not sure how it would fare, to be honest. Joe kept in close contact throughout my injury process, which was brilliant of him. He was like, Stevie, like, I want you to play for me. I want you to play for Ireland. How's the ankle feeling? What's the progress going like? And I was just honest with him and says, no, it's not looking good here. Okay, well, we're going to extend your contract for another 6 months to try and get you to turn a corner. You know, I was very, very thankful to the RFU for me, first of all. Anybody that's read the book,
Get it out there.
read the book.
Man and Ball, available in Eason's.
Easton's, yeah, or Amazon 5 stars. Yeah, it's a great read. I signed a contract in Japan. I was going to play for a team called Coca-Cola Red Sparks. Signed, sealed. All I needed to do was get myself fit, and for me it was to go away for 8 or 9 months, pick up a paycheck, play and come back. Chatting to Vern Cotter, who was at Claremont, was on the phone to him 3 or 4 times. More or less, there was an agreement in place that I would go over and play for Claremont. There was a guy called Vosloo, if you remember Vosloo with the long hair, who played. I was going to come in and replace him, and then come back and be back playing within Ireland for the 2015 World Cup. You know, that's what I had kind of planned in front of me. That didn't materialise just because of a bad injury. So yeah, it's tough, but playing for Ireland was the highlight and pinnacle of my career, because it was just meant everything to me.
Yeah, I mean, you touched upon the injury, Joe Schmidt, Clermont, Japan. I've got no questions left. It's one of the things I was going to ask you about that comeback game in 2014. I mean, you've been out 15 months at this point, and there's a moment, obviously, you mentioned it, where I think your first involvement was this massive hit. It was against Christian Phillips, was it?
Yeah, 15, yeah.
Talk me through that moment, firstly, just what it was like to be back on the pitch after that spell out. And I think, particularly now that you've mentioned it, another question I was going to ask you, like, were you cognizant of the fact that even though I'm playing here, I'm playing on borrowed time, that this is going to come to an end probably shortly?
I was warming up, like, I was warming up on the sidelines, going up and down, and my feet, I have women who suffer from neuromas in their feet from wearing high heels.
I know, like, well, yeah.
You know well. I suffer from that now, and it was really, really bad. Like, it was just having rugby boots on or football boots on and having 2 or 3 stones in there, and when you're running, it was just agony. And it's just all because of no flexion in my ankle joint whatsoever, and it was just warming up, and I was hitting bags, and I was going, are they going to bring me on here, or what's the story? Because the ankle just felt, and it was so taped up, you know, so taped up, my knee was taped up, and I was just looking at myself going, geez, I'm 28, like, you know, I'm just absolutely, you know, butchered here. So get on, Ruan Pinar said, somebody called the 5-man line out, Nick Williams come off, and Ruan Pinar kind of gave me the nod. And, you know, anybody who watched Ruan Pinar's box kicks were on the money all the time. And again, I went out of the line to make that hit. You know, I didn't stay in the line. I was seeing an opportunity in front of me to kind of put pressure on, where now you don't really see that as much. You kind of see everybody holding their line and making sure that they're all rigid and sticking to the structures and everything. And I heard after it and made that and all I heard was bang, and the crowd just went nuts. And yeah, it was a great feeling. But I got up and it was like, oh, thank God for that, the ankle made it through, you know, because it was I played 3 more games, suffered my only concussion in my career a week later, and then I was like, what's going on here? What's the point of this? Like, it's just not going to work out.
Christian Phillips, who you hit, welcomed you back, I believe, as well.
He's lying on the floor and he's like, good hit, bud, on the floor. I was like, oh, cheers, thanks, mate. But yeah, the Welsh lads always get on really well with him. But yeah, it was, again, it's a one of those moments that I can take away as a really good memory, because yeah, it was one of the last home games that I played. And yeah, it was a great hit. Another talking point. People talk about it all the time, and I kind of went out in my career in a bit of a high, albeit it was out on an injury. If that makes sense. Yeah,
of course. Like, while on the topic of Ulster, obviously the high-profile departure of Les Kiss recently, making a lot of headlines. Naturally, do you feel that Kiss? You're dreading. I just know. Like,
were you the one writing saying "Last Christmas" for over the Christmas period?
That was Murray. That's a Murray special. I know.
It was.
He's looking at me now. Is he a scapegoat here? Given like that, there seem to be structural problems going on at Ulster at the moment.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that. Bryn Cunningham, who's operations director, he does the hiring and firing. He's now looking after all the off-field stuff. Has come out this week and said this is a fresh start. You know, Les Kiss is now gone. We need to lay foundations. We need to give our stakeholders and fans, you know, something to get behind. And I was like, well, we're not trying to do that 2 years ago when you signed Les Kiss, you know. And I'm just like, that's 4 coaches gone in the last 3 years. Ulster needs stability. They need a coach to come in for the long term. The club needs longevity. It needs foundations put in place, and it needs realistic goals. It needs to be right, we're going to try and make a European quarter final, instead of coming out and saying the CEO of, as you've seen in my comments over the last number of years, we're going to be the world's best team within 5 years, we're going to win this, we're going to win the European Cup within 5 years, we're going to win 2 leagues within 5 years. And I'm sitting scratching my head going, is this guy real? We got the final against Leinster and got absolutely hockeyed by the best team in the world. You know, and then there was guys retiring, guys leaving. At that stage, yes, we had a fantastic team, but that team never stays together for more than 2-3 seasons before guys, you know, venture off to different clubs and that. So yeah, Les, to me, anybody who knows him or has worked with him or chatted to him, he is one of the nicest guys that you'll meet. He is so dead on, would never pass you by without saying hello, very approachable, but I think being handed the reins of the poison chalice up at Ulster was just too much for him. It was his first job that he was the man in charge. He worked under Joe, he worked under Decky, he'd worked under other coaches, and I think just everything got on top of him. He's very, you know, when he was being interviewed, he didn't come across confident, he didn't give the fans what they wanted, and you know, for me, he's been a dead man walking for the whole season. Just the results, if anybody watched Ulster versus Treviso, Andrew Trimble last minute try, Ulster versus Dragons last minute try, Christian Lealefano missed the conversion to win it, draw. Then, you know, the Southern Kings, they conceded 7 tries or something against the Southern Kings, the team they're playing tomorrow night. You know, it's the man, it's that man who, it's the same in football, and that's the way rugby's going. The more money that's being pumped into it. Like, Les was on serious cash, like serious wedge at Ulster Rugby, and if he's not producing, if the man in charge isn't producing, then he's going to be the guy that takes the bullet.
And when the pressure comes on, I think he was probably a little bit guilty of taking too much responsibility, not letting other people do their roles within the setup. He feels the pressure, he's getting paid well, he feels, I have to fix this, I have to fix defence, I have to fix attack, and suddenly you're kind of alienating your coaching team as well, and those kind of guys aren't very happy.
Yeah, we chatted about it earlier on there, just before we come on, and chatting about Declan Kidney. Like, Declan Kidney done 5% of the coaching, but like, he's won a Grand Slam, you know. But he delegated very well. He let the good coaches do their own thing. Like Paul O'Connell, more or less, coached the line out. You know, Gert Small's input and other people coming in, taking the ruck or whatever. But he was good at that. He was good at managing people. He was good at keeping guys on their toes. When it came to team selection, who picked the team? Declan Kidney. but he didn't do all the coaching. But he was standing on the sidelines, assessing everything, you know, and
putting pressure on lads.
And you know, I think Les just, when he came under pressure, he tried to do more instead of probably doing less.
Yeah, that was Decky's strength. I remember when I was a very young fella, I went to a Munster training session, called up with the big lads. I was wide-eyed, and Decky didn't say a word. He stood on the sideline for the entire session, and I said, "Is that what he does?" Yeah. But I felt the pressure from him. I actually felt by him saying nothing, he was actually getting more out of me. It was a strange experience.
I used to just walk past him and go, "Well, how you getting on?" I was like,
I'd like to apologise to all the people from Cork in the audience. I mean,
I was like, good Decky. Grand.
Yeah.
What was it?
I was like, right, see you later. Freaky.
What was a team talk under Kidney like then? Like, as in, we've seen footage of Eddie O'Sullivan, his predecessor, on RT documentaries or whatever, and he's, you know, chest out, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Was Kidney similar, or?
Well, he could lose his temper, all right. Yeah, he you know, his face could go very red a lot of times. But again, he understood who his senior players were, who were the best lads to drive the team. So instead of Decky standing up and trying to get the boys riled up, you know, somebody like Paul O'Connell, you know, we probably listened more to Paul than we did to Decky, just because he's our teammate. He was the best player that I ever played with, you know, and everybody respected him so much. So, like, he was the man we just kind of listened to. So he got the team going. Brian was Brian captained Ireland most of the times that I played, but he was very much into touching on the game plan, what roles and responsibilities you're going to be given. You know, where, you know, Paulie would have been, get up and get stuck into them, you know. And then you had O'Callaghan beating his head off some locker somewhere, like, losing even more brain cells. He can't afford. And he can ill afford to. He can ill afford to do that. Yeah. But like, everybody kind of done their own thing, and just to kind of elaborate on the point of like team talks and that, you know, everybody's different. Like, I sat in the corner and maybe had a towel or a jersey over my head and just sat and thought about the first kick-off, if it came down my channel, what I was going to do with it. You know, if it was off the tail of a line out and I was, say it was a 5-man line out, did Johnny want me inside him or outside him? That didn't sound right, did it? Yeah, or outside.
We can cut it. Volkswagen are going to be disgusted.
Where other guys were literally, you know, puking in the toilet or going nuts, you know. Donegal Callahan doing mad press-ups in the middle of the changing room. So everybody was different, but when it came to that huddle and you were just about to cross the whitewash, you know, generally those conversations that were being had at that time was by Paul or by Brian.
I can't transition into France versus Ireland without asking you about something I asked you about last year, which was, I think it was a 2011 World Cup warm-up game against France. You got in a spot of bother with, was it Dimitri Sarzeski in the tunnel? Mm-hmm. You mentioned Paul O'Connell there. I think he may have intervened in some way.
Yeah, I was pretty public that actually, where's the sighting? Is it along here where you go down for the sighting? If somebody gets sighted, there's like, it's literally on the street.
Office,
yeah, the office.
Yeah,
it's actually
the bar downstairs.
Yeah, it's around the corner. So I was down a couple of times. A guy called, no, I wasn't in the wrong. A guy called David Atube, or David Atube, if in a French accent, and he eye gouged me, and it was really, really bad. Anybody wants to Google it, like, it was a really bad eye gouge, but I had no idea who had done it at the time. And a guy called Oliver McVeigh, who was photographer up north, for some reason, like the whistle had blown, but for some reason just kept snap, 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 snap. And you can see it after the game. I had no idea who done it. After the game, you can see literally the guy's finger buried in my eye. And they tried to deny it and saying that he didn't realise and all the rest of it and all that carry on. But yeah, Dimitri Sarzeski, David Atube's friend, playing there, and they were calling me this, that, and the other, and saying, "Oh, you're this, you're," you know, because the guy got 54-week ban or 70-something week ban, and then got it reduced to 50. Like, that's a year out. So of course, this guy's going to lose money, you know. But at the end of the day, like, I wasn't the one that I got somebody. He was the one that got stuck into me. So yeah, he was getting into me, and I went to shake his hand at the end of the game. Sporting gentleman that I am. And I went up and went, "Oh, good game," because they actually won.
Yeah.
And he went, "Oh, you fucking wanker, whatever. Like, can you lip read? Are you allowed to curse? Yeah. And I just went, all right, and I kind of shoved him, and that was it. And we're walking into the tunnel, and again, I thought it'd be the bigger man, and of course, clapping each other off, slapping each other. And I went like that, and just kind of looked, and he went like this here and called me something else, and I like boom, shoved like in the chest, pretty hard, and he kind of went at me, and like Paul just went, no. I was like, yes, Psycho's got my back. But I believe by all accounts that Sarzeski, from a couple of chats with Sexto or with Raj, like who obviously coached at that he's a nice guy, you know. So look, I don't know what came of it, but yeah, it was all from that eye gouging incident, and yeah, he got what he deserved.
When what? When Johnny Sexton drops back in the pocket, 370 yards from goal. And land, like, what are you thinking at that moment, even before the kick? Because I know my personal interpretation of it was, because I was watching it on TV and he was actually so far away that he was off camera, the ball goes back and I'm like, no, what are you thinking? What are you thinking at that moment? Like, you've played with him, so you know what he's capable of, obviously. Are you confident as a player, having played with him, that he's going to land this, or...?
I think it's about time you invested in a widescreen TV, to be honest.
That's fair.
I was actually in a pub in Dublin, and everybody was like this, just like watching, going through the phases, and next thing, just the place went crazy, because I think it was unexpected. There was actually one or two, I think it was Ian Henderson carry, and then the next carry, I can't remember.
Stander.
It was just like a tiny bit of momentum, like 2-3 yards, and he just went bang, give me it. And I haven't been in that situation where you've needed a drop goal to win a game. Well, I have, but not a game that really matters. And I've been on the other end of it, where I've been defending, and it's easy to just get up and tackle, get up and tackle, get up and tackle. And I think CJ Stander came out in the media and said, once you go through 6 or 7 phases, you bring yourself to a dark place and you just keep getting up and you keep going.
Yeah. And
like, I would say those boys, Henderson, O'Mahony, Stander, like Levy, those guys, I was just watching it going, how are they still getting up? And they looked fresh, they were still getting up and they were still carrying.
It's interesting, actually,
crazy.
If you go back to the All Blacks match in 2013, that was a massive lesson for Joe Schmidt as a coach. We were talking to Mike McCarthy during the week, and he explained that after that match, Schmidt sat them down and he said, look at this clip, it was like 4.5 minutes, basically the ball in play the whole time. And he said the All Blacks came out the other side of this and beat us. So from that day, I think every week, at the start of the week, they do a session where it's literally 4.5 minutes long. They blast them at an intensity that's actually higher than match intensity, so that when they got into a situation, it ended up being like over 4 years down the line, they were actually prepared for it. So it was interesting to get that little insight from Mike, and that's how long-term Joe is.
I never knew that. Like, that's unbelievable, and that's just good coaching. You know, that's playing mind games with the players. You know, there's been some crazy stories of some of the mind games that come out of camp. The whole Simon Zebo thing, you know, because he wasn't in great shape, and you know, he went up to the food and he like got a burger or something, and he set the burger down on the plate, and like Joe walked past him, threw a couple of sachets of mayonnaise down and went, enjoy your burger, like. And he's like, oh, cheers, Joe. But that's Joe going, you really shouldn't be eating that burger, you should be going for the healthy option.
You can't enjoy the burger at that point. You know?
So that's just Joe, like. But yeah, that's very interesting with the training. But geez, and when the drop goal went over, like, he was getting treated for cramp. He was wet, soggy pitch. I've played there a couple of times. We drew there 17 all, you know, a few years ago. I never won there. What a kick. And then of course the pub that it was in just absolutely erupted. Like, it was nice. Pints were flying everywhere, and good fun.
Yeah, it was a nightmare in the stadium. Like, we have to file a match report on final whistle, not to make my life sound awful, but match report on final whistle. So I have my report
over in Paris.
I have my report done. They're writing off Ireland disaster start. They lose again. They never should have lost. The drop kick goes over. You almost go, I got to completely rewrite this. Bang bang. But yeah, amazing moment.
But what way would if that drop kick had have landed a yard short? Everybody's talking about that it was an amazing win, but I think a few people looking at the game have been more critical and saying that it wasn't a good performance by Ireland, and they somewhat got out of jail. But like, if that drop kick hadn't went over, what would have been the headline?
Yeah, it would have been a disastrous start for Ireland in Six Nations because they were in that position to win.
He actually had it written.
Johnny misses that penalty to go 9 points clear, and they needed that separation, I thought. At the time, I was like, you've got to kick this. It's kind of like a little blind spot for him, isn't it? Although I don't think he enjoys that suggestion. He's missed a few from that right-hand side. But if they went there 9 points ahead, I think it probably would have been a fair reflection of their control in the game. So I think they'll be focusing quite a bit on the fact that they didn't get that separation on the scoreboard, and they kind of, obviously it's a massive psychological boost to win a game in those circumstances and know that they have that ability now, and for other teams to know it as well. You know, they're never going to be clear of Ireland. They always have. If it takes 5 minutes in possession, they always have it.
Do you think there's a bit of naivety from the French point of view, that 22 dropout? If Ireland were in that position, I can assure you that Ireland would 99 times out of 100 win that restart. So like, French didn't even put up a pod. Henderson just had a clear run and caught it, and away they went.
Incredible kick from Johnny, and they also missed that penalty. You know, I don't think they actually knew that Machino could have actually kicked that penalty. He comes on as a HI replacement. The old rule was that the HI can't actually kick the penalty, but he could have kicked it, and I think if he'd taken it, Ireland probably would have lost that game.
Is there any questions on the HIA?
No,
that's it.
Let's wait for the review.
Did you see the piece Will Greenwood done? You didn't get a chance to watch that?
No,
he's sticking up for the French because of what Nigel Owen said. It's ahead.
So basically, that's the word coming back from the early stages of the review. Nigel Owens immediately taps his head when Dupont goes down, and once that trigger is given, the independent match doctor basically has to call for a HIA. So even though the video evidence clearly showed he didn't get banged in the head, the independent doctor has already called for it, so he can't actually go back on his call, because then if it turns out somehow that Dupont gets an actual knock on the head, then there's going to be a massive court case where they say this guy should have taken him off the pitch. We called for the HIA. So I think it was just being extremely cautious. It did look bad, and I know the independent doctor was French and all, but I think it's actually quite explainable. Nigel Owens taps his head. He thought it was a head injury instantly, and that was the confusion. So
it's Nigel's fault.
Well,
that's been Nigel.
He's been kind to us in the past. Like, he's emerged from that game, and all of a sudden he's taken a lot of heat. Murray, you were saying beforehand that during Joe Schmidt's review, like every coach, you explain it. I mean,
I don't think he wasn't a completely decisive factor in that match, but I think if Ireland had lost, Joe would have absolutely blasted him in the media. He did get a few comments in there. He said we weren't happy with them rolling away from the ruck, and there were a few crazy ones in that last passage. Van Heenan on the ball for 8 seconds. Nigel Owens goes into the ruck and taps him on the head, says get off that ball. Like,
nearly pulled him out.
I've never seen a ref do that, especially in a position like that after so many phases. So I think Ireland were very unhappy. You know, they do the reviews after the matches. Joe Schmidt has a detailed list of all the wrongs that Nigel did. Apparently this one was extremely long and extremely cutting, so I don't think they were happy with him, but they got out of jail in the end after an unhappy refereeing performance, I think.
What do you make of the team that was announced today for the weekend? Any major surprises, or anybody that you would have liked to have seen included that wasn't?
Is Ryan injured? Is there talk of
the word
picked up a niggle? Or?
Yeah, the word is a little niggle in his groin, I think, but I think he probably could have played if it was a decider for Grand Slam. He would have played, but I think they're trying to manage him. Like, he's 21, he's got a big future ahead of him, and I think they learned lessons with Carberry and Ringrose last year. Like, they played those guys a lot. They played a lot of big tests, and you're seeing now this season their bodies have broken down a little bit. So I think they're being cautious with Ryan, and probably rightly so. He looks like an exceptional player.
He was unbelievable last week. I could not believe the work. Was it 14 carries? Yeah,
17 I think.
17 carries. Like, and
led the team in tackles as well, I think 10, 11 tackles or something like that. In a game where Ireland had no possession as well. You know what I mean? Or had all the possession.
It was just amazing. But big Devin Toner, like somebody who's been there, done it, at top level. Will he call the line out, take a bit of pressure off Ian Henderson this week? Probably. You could see Henderson be a little bit more destructive, getting more ball in hand. But I think it just keeps it fresh, keeps boys on their toes. They've kept the back line the same. Why? Because the back line didn't really offer too much at the weekend there against France. The conditions weren't great. They didn't have as much ball in the multi-phase as they probably would have liked. Their starter plays, like Joe Schmidt, is just all about structure. A lot of Ireland's tries come off the top Irish lineouts, and they just couldn't get across the gain line. The French have shored up that inside defence. So they'll be trying to pick holes out of that Italian defence in the English game, putting loads of plays together, get the playbook, see what's happening, and this is the team they've come up with to try and execute the game plan. And I think he's probably not far off. It's great to see the young fella on the bench as well. Hopefully he gets an opportunity. I actually thought he could have started You know, just keep Carney fresh. Carney had, apart from for me, one slight mistake of maybe on the counter attack from Teddy Thomas, but yeah, I think it's a really good team.
Yeah, I think Joe's thinking is to keep that back line together because they, as you say, they weren't really familiar with each other. It didn't look that cohesive, especially in the backfield as well. Like that back three hasn't really played together an awful lot. I'm sure they've trained together quite a bit now under Joe, but even things like working their pendulum defence, linking up on set piece plays, I think he understands that they need to be at a higher level for that Wales game, and especially with Johnny Sexton starting at 10. People were thinking get Joey in there, Joey Carberry to get 80 minutes, but I think he understands that Johnny and that backline have to be firing on all cylinders for that. Is Fergus
McFadden just been released to get game time?
He's gone back to Leinster, yeah. Like it's a chance to get Jordan Larmour in there. He's been exceptional. It's a kind of easier way to get him into a test match. Bring him on with 30 minutes when that game is opening up, when his footwork was step off both sides. Conor O'Shea today compared him to a young Christian Cullen. And like it's I don't think that's far off. He's an unbelievably exciting player.
But if he comes on and scores 2 or 3 tries and Ireland win the game by 45 points to 10 or whatever, he's still not going to be in the matchday squad versus Wales.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Joe really, really rates him, and I think if he gives him that really strong evidence that this guy is actually a game changer, possibly in a big match, I wouldn't put it past him. Like he's a really exceptional talent.
Is the potential that the tournament might actually come down to points difference? Does that come into Schmidt's mind at all? Like in starting Sexton, I think in particular over Carberry, where you want things to run as smoothly as possible. You want to have, I suppose, maximise what you're taking out of the game in terms of points scored. Like, it's not impossible. You'd hate to be kicking yourself the way England have been twice when we caught them on points difference.
They can't take any chances. They've got to build that cohesion into those big games to come. They got to get a bonus point. Obviously, England and Wales got them last weekend, so they've already set the standard. There is a little bit of freshness in there in the back row. It's good to see Jack Conan. Like you mentioned, maybe you might not have fit into Joe's structures. I think he's had to adapt his game. He likes an offload. He's maybe likes to get out of the line a bit times. Joe's worked on with that. I think his defence in particular was something they pinpointed in November. They said you need to get more repeat efforts, you need to be back on your feet quicker. And you saw in those 2 Exeter games for Leinster, he was really strong in defence. So I think he showed Joe, I can learn, I can do these things. And it's great to see Dan Levy in that starting team as well. Another guy who could go on to be a starter for Ireland.
Yeah, but I thought CJ Stander had a very poor first half. Like he got the ball stripped off him a couple of times. He just seemed like he wasn't 100% there, and fair play to the guy. He sticks his hand up to carry the ball at every single opportunity. But sometimes it's okay to let Dan Levy, who's fresh off the bench, come on and take a couple of those carries. So yes, the stats say that he has 25 carries, whatever it is, but 21 of those might be for 1 yard or 2 yards. Yeah. And I've noticed that a lot about his game, that he carries a hell of a lot, but doesn't actually have a lot of meterage for those carries.
Very similar against Argentina, game in which he started poorly. He did score a try, probably a pivotal try in the game, but again, by far the highest number of carries, and yet his yardage was similar to all of his fellow forwards. It wasn't like he was.
You can't question his work rate.
No,
it's absolutely huge. But somebody like Jack Conan might carry the ball half as much as he does and make twice as many meters as he does. Yeah. So it's kind of weighing up the options, and maybe having somebody like Peter O'Mahony, who isn't a really strong carrier, then CJ Stander starting maybe takes a little bit of pressure off him, where he can be a pest at the breakdown, work on his line out, and be that inspirational leader that he is. And maybe CJ takes that off him, but Jack Conan for me he's got all the ability. If I'm picking a team, I pick athletes, and he is an athlete to have in the back row.
Yeah, it just keeps a bit of pressure on CJ. Like massive workload. I think he hit 42, 43 rucks as well. So he probably has earned a little bit of a break, but this keeps a bit of pressure on him. It makes him understand, listen, Jack Conan's right behind you. Even with Jack McGrath and Cian Healy, by rotating them, Cian Healy, it's not your position just because you're in good form. There's another really good loose head prop. So he's an expert at doing that as well, Joe, keeping guys on their toes, never really settled in the team. Now Dev Toner is fighting for his first choice status, which was a kind of a guarantee under Joe.
Dev could be sitting at home going, this is an opportunity here. Like if I have a really bad game, like he could fall down another notch in the pecking order. Yeah. So
Quinn Rue was there on the bench.
Quinn Rue's there. He's like, right, I'm going to go out and absolutely smash this, because his international career, he's not getting any younger either. I played under 21s with him. So but Big Dev, everybody kind of gives him a bit of stick, about, he's a line-out operator, he's pretty one-dimensional, but he gets the job done every single time he takes the pitch. I have a lot of admiration for him.
Yeah. Are we okay to run a bit of analysis? Ireland's defence probably won't be tested hugely.
We're going to attack first, I think.
Are we doing attack first?
Yeah.
I apologise. Ireland's attack will be tested. Ireland's attack will come to the fore against Italy at the weekend. Murray, take us through.
Yeah, there's been loads of talk about the attack. Obviously, after they had so much possession, 70% possession, so many massive multi-phase passages where they just couldn't break. The French down. Like a lot of that discussion is always like kind of big picture, philosophical kind of things. Like, do they need a second playmaker? Do they need to change the game plan? Like in camp, that's just an unrealistic kind of debate. They don't talk about that. They have one attack review meeting at the start of the week. They fix little things and they move on. You know, Joe's not going to look at our articles and go, actually, fuck it, let's offload everything. You know, I've got this badly wrong. He's going to look at the little details, and we're going to look at some of them here in our clips. Little things that he'll probably have picked out as contributing to a rather poor attacking performance. This is actually encouraging. You're seeing James Ryan. He's one of this kind of new breed of forwards. We discussed it last week. He's going to go out the door with out the back door with that pass, and you can see there's an opportunity for Ireland. Josh van der Fleer here runs this line, and he's trying to attract in Jalibert. This guy, he's trying to get him to turn his shoulders in, and he's quite successful in doing that. You can see there Jalibert is committed to the tackle. And the ball is out the back door to Bundee Aki. Here's the opportunity now. And what Bundee Aki does is he pretty much ships the pass on within two steps. What he really needs to do is get at that inside shoulder of Chavancy there. Chavancy is the midfield defender. Like if Bundee Aki can just stick him and turn his shoulders in a little bit, the opportunity outside is going to be absolutely massive. Instead, you see Aki just ship the ball on, and you see Chavancy is gone there. He's gone on the drift straight away. He's getting across the pitch. Jalibert is going to try and link up with him. And then Robbie Henshaw, quite similar, ships on the ball, and Ireland end up with a 2-on-2 on the outside when it could have been possibly a 3-on-1 or a 2-on-1 at least, with Conor Murray as well. They're linking up on the inside. Like Joe picks out on that little thing. It's like another couple of steps on the ball for Bundee Aki, and what is a really good line break anyway, and they get 3 points out of this. Possibly could have been a try-scoring opportunity, and I think Aki has those things at the top level to learn. Our next example is off set piece. Joe Schmidt, we were talking about it before. He's absolutely massive on everyone getting their role right, and one of the big roles is decoy play. He's huge on this. He pushes the players all the time. He talks about like it's natural human instinct to react to a kind of aggressive perceived threat. So like, you know, if someone swings a fist at you, you're going to flinch. He talks about that the same way with his decoy runs, like be an aggressive threat. Even if you don't block a guy, even if you don't sit him down completely, it's going to have a knock-on effect out the line. And you see in this example, we're going to look at CJ Stander first. He's trying to get outside Guirado and block him off basically. But you can see Guirado just slips outside him there. So that's your first decoy.
That's pretty poor. That's a pretty poor, you know, decoy runner there. You know, he's got to come back, let the ball literally just get in behind him, and try and sit somebody down. And like he's literally just ran into space there, and the French have went, "What are you doing?" and just ran on. You know, and Joe will be livid about that. He's like, CJ, this play cannot work if you don't do your job. Like if the first rule gets broken, then the whole play is out the window.
Well, you're going to see the chain link of effect. Like, yeah, he's basically a dead decoy. The next guy is Bundee Aki here. You know, can he sit someone down? Can he block off someone in that defensive line? Again, Jalibert gets to his outside shoulder, and he's still part of that defensive line. He can drift on out. The third decoy line is Josh van der Fleer here, and again, same thing. We run it on, and you can see Jalibert and even Lamaras switch past him, drift past him rather, and then you get to the outside edge, and look, it's actually a 3-on-2 for France on the outside edge. They have an overlap in defence off a set piece, which is crazy. You know, Joe Schmidt will be ripping his hair out over this during the week and running through them. They actually do. Keith Earls is great feed, gets inside, makes a bit of a gain line, but they're just so reliant on those set piece strikes to get over the gain line and play off. If you fail on that first phase, then you're in big trouble.
I think you'll see these exact same plays come out against Italy. I think they'll try and get them on the outside. They'll try and get them into the wider channels, and they'll be trying to execute exactly that, except do it right. And if they do it right, like that first, Johnny Sexton looks up, sees Vakatawa is really deep, really wide, disconnected. He's like, right guys, we need to get it on the outside. As soon as they get it on the outside, honestly, if the midfield just take it up, pass and give, it's a walk-in in the corner. And it's amazing what 2 or 3 steps can do to hold the defence. So they'll be working on that all week to get it right. So much deal.
Another couple of other things, just putting your skills under pressure. We've talked about the forwards passing, and this is just a small example. We're kind of zoomed out, but Tadhg Furlong's got on the ball there, and he has Peter O'Mahony on his outside shoulder. Like, can he drop that little tip on pass there? I know the weather's poor and it's a sloppy kind of conditions, but if he just gives that little tip on when the one guy rushing on him, O'Mahony goes into a hole, instead they get smashed back behind the gain line. I
think that has to come from Pete. It's not coming from Ty.
Yeah,
so, Pete's got to get 2 or 3 yards wider and say, yeah, I'm on your outside, give me the tip on. Instead he's just kind of standing there waiting for the breakdown, which isn't a bad thing. Their ball security is priority. So, but you're 100% right. If they can get on that outside shoulder, there's 4 or 5 yards to get a gain line.
Yeah, because even with the forwards passing, we were talking to Ty Furlong during the week, and we've seen them go out the back door, but he's talking about, I need a trigger call from one of the backs. It's not my decision. I'm not as comfortable making that decision. I need someone behind me, or in that case, alongside me. Another example here, not to pick on Peter O'Mahony, but they make a good gain line there. You saw Bundy Aki getting that little roll on the ground. Furlong makes the pass, and then Johnny out the back door. And O'Mahony just forces that pass.
Roger Federer, it was.
But there's three backs there. If he can actually, if we just run it back, if he can catch pass, and I know it's easy to pick this out when we can pause it and fast forward and everything, but if he can just do a catch pass, draw Lamara, there's a 3-on-1 on the outside, and again they can link up with those inside support players. So little opportunities. I think that's on phase 6, phase 7. You can see how unhappy Johnny Sexton is, and then. Little detail after the tackle, Johnny Sexton puts up a great kick. Really good competition from Rob Kearney. He's brilliant at that. He didn't actually get to the ball there, but he gets a bit of contact in the air, which Joe Schmidt loves. And the ball falls for Ireland. Conor Murray gets on the ball, but I think Joe Schmidt will have picked this out. What's your next action? You're on the ground, you're waiting for your support. How hard are you fighting? Murray kind of tries to tuck the ball down to the ground, but Schmidt will be asking, why aren't you working hard? Why aren't you wriggling forward? Why aren't you rolling up the pitch? Why aren't you getting that upper body back up the field? And you can see it ends with a turnover for France. We often look at the support players and go, oh, they weren't there quick enough. But Schmidt, his first thing is that player on the ground. He'll actually say that player on the ground is sometimes even more important than the clear.
See, I would probably disagree that the ball fell for Ireland there. Ireland just wanted the ball more. There was a couple of French guys that could have got on it quicker, but if you're on the pitch, Leinster call scraps. So if there's any ball that hits the floor, like Fergus McFadden just runs around the pitch, just scraps. He's looking for the ball. But it's something that's drilled into them in training. If a ball goes down, you'll see 2 or 3 of the Irish boys, and they don't even have any opposition, flying straight onto the ball. And sometimes it is about just who wants it that little bit more. So a 50-50 balls can work out in your favour if you wanted that a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he wants to bring that fight to everything. This is a good example from Keane Healy. He gets tackled there onto his back, and you can see Gruado is a threat over that ball, but you just get that little bit of extra detail. He's squeezing his upper body to get back up the field, and Ireland regained that possession. So they're the little things I think Joe probably tends to pick out rather than focusing on, okay, hang on, do I drop Rob Kearney, put in a second playmaker? Do I need to rip up my playbook? They're the things he'll really focus on, I think.
Excellent, thank you very much, boys. Before we get a couple of questions and head to half-time, just something you alluded to there, Murray, like Schmidt is absolutely obsessed with this, what he describes as body ball, I think it's what he calls it, where it's almost more important for the man who takes the ball to the ground to actually fight and get it back. Not more important, but it's equally as important as it is for the players in support to get over the ball and protect it.
Yeah, like he's massively focusing on those little, as most top coaches are, the basic little details, the core skills. Like his set piece plays are unbelievably detailed. His phase play, even everyone has to know exactly which ruck they're getting to, but it all boils down to those little basic skills. He's competition in the air, that box kick. They had a few poor ones, I thought, last day, where Conor Murray just went slightly too long early in the game when they're trying to target Vakatawa. They built, I think, a 3-phase kind of kicking attack to put the ball in him, but it's just too long. And that can kind of sap energy from your team, whereas that perfect kick allows Keith Earls to get up, compete, and possibly win the ball back. He's massively focused on that stuff.
The kicking game for Ireland is huge, always has been when Joe Smith's in charge. But for me, if Ireland go past 4 or 5 phases, they're multi-phase. It's not that they look clueless at all, it's just that they look predictable. And that's something that they got to work on, is that when they ran 41 to 42 phases, they didn't really go anywhere. There was no kind of line breaks. Yes, they were just trying to get in position for a drop goal, but it's trying to execute scoring opportunities, and they are there. We can see them, they are there, but they have to try and execute them, and that's the challenge.
Yeah, I think that in terms of their attack longer term, he probably is aware of that fact. Like, you can't change things now in the tournament and as we said, change the game plan, but longer term, can he get that second playmaker on? There's so much responsibility on Johnny Sexton. You see when he's on the ground, we analysed it during the week on the 42. There was one example where he comes around the corner, there's no plug there. There's no support on the left side, but Conor Murray goes to the right and nothing's organised. There's no one taking control there, and he blasts Robbie Henshaw. He's like, why the F aren't you organising?
But you'll be looking at the Leinster games and saying, you know, this, like I would, you know, as an Ulster man watching Leinster, the brand of rugby that they're currently playing, it's just so good to watch, and the lads love playing it. You know, they're really enjoying the rugby. So I think obviously Ireland aren't going to get to where Leinster are with their offloading game and everything, but I think that Joe will be analysing those games and trying to take bits and pieces out of the games, especially because there's a large contingent of Leinster players involved in the squad, and try and make that brand better.
What about you guys? Do you have any thoughts, any questions? Can we get microphone down to these beautiful people? You're not blackballing us, are you? There's a couple there.
Just a question about Ulster rugby. To
go back. Ulster rugby?
Oh. Yeah.
Here we go.
Oh shit.
It's not that bad. Just what you were saying about the lack of consistency. Having John O'Gibbs come in the interim, what would you suggest in terms of like going forward as a coaching option, unless you're planning on handing in the microphone and going into that. But like John O'Gibbs he's been involved in a setup that you've kind of said has failed essentially. Jared Payne's in the background now while he's injured, training with the team and helping with the coaching. But who do you bring in, or how do you fix the problem if you're saying it's coming from the top?
Yeah, well, if I had the answer, I think it would be in the coaching setup. But it's I think John O'Gibbs is feeling the pressure. Like the Ulster forward pack just hasn't performed, especially over the interpros, and that's where they get judged quite heavily. He wasn't around for the Conor game. They got absolutely demolished down in Galway. You know, against Wasps, they get demolished. It just, I think it all stems from not having a big enough pack, just not having enough ball carriers. You look at the Leinster pack and Munster pack, they've just guys itching at the bit to get out and carry ball, where Ulster just don't have it. Marcel Coetzee injured, huge guy. We signed John Diesel. You know, he couldn't get onto the Munster team, like, you know, when it was fully fit. So why did Ulster sign a 2-year deal like to somebody who's? I just can't get my head around some of the signings. But obviously they just thought they needed a big, strong guy to try and get them over the gain line, and now he's not even involved in the squad tomorrow night. So it's a tricky one, like. But who's going to be brought in to fix this, as I said earlier, the kind of poison chalice that it seems to have been over the last 4 or 5 years? I don't think they're going to bring anybody in until the end of the season. They're going to have a whole coaching review and look at everything from grassroots right up and see how they're going to fix it. But probably for me, it would be the CEO of Ulster Rugby probably making a few wrong decisions over the last number of years, filling fans full of expectation and hope that they're going to be the best team in the world, and that type of. I would repeat myself because I've said that so many times over the last 2 years, but I haven't seen Shane come out and give an interview and explain what his thoughts were behind those comments. Like, the fans are walking out going, "World's best team, my arse," you know. Well, like of course they are, because the man who's in charge of everything to do with Ulster Rugby said that they were going to be the world's best team. Yeah. So like they're very right to kind of say that. But I think they've got a great guy in Bryn Cunningham there. I played with him for numerous years. Smart guy. I think his options have been fairly limited when it comes to signing overseas players. Yes, he's got a couple of good guys, Marty Moore, Jordy Murphy coming up, who will definitely bolster the team. But yeah, he's got a lot of work to do, and that's a long-winded answer to your question. But I think they'll just hold out to the end of the season and then make a decision from then. Yeah,
you mentioned though Graham's up, like that is key now. Recalibrate those expectations and start building again. Academy hasn't really produced the same crop of players that, like you guys, that got to that final, and they haven't really tapped into the club game. I don't know if there's a bit of disconnect there. I know some people aren't too happy that it's not joined up. Yeah. I think there's chances to now start fresh, realise, okay, we can actually get more through our system. We don't need to sign players from Leinster Academy. We actually have quality in our schools and clubs, and we just need to tap into that, I think.
Yeah, and because the population is greater down in Dublin, that's no excuse. Like that for me, that is no excuse. But I'm friendly with, you know, YDOs who got called into Shane Logan's office only a couple of years ago and told that their jobs were being done away with. Like all these YDOs who are out to make the game of rugby in Ulster evolve and to bring young kids on and go to the very corners of Donegal, the schools, and coach young kids.
God help
them, yeah. Like, so say, I've no idea how many of them there was, but like he chopped so many jobs. And where I speak to the people involved in the Leinster setup, like there's so many jobs being given to try and massive, huge program. And everybody wants to work for Leinster because they're doing so bloody well.
And they've tapped in, like the 5 counties thing, they've tapped into the whole province, even though it's perceived as probably like Dublin-centric. They have tapped in.
Less so now, I think, as well. You know, like as I know over the last couple of years, you've seen the likes of Sean O'Brien and these Tyke Furlong. All they want to do is talk about farming. You know what I mean? And it has changed the perception of it.
Well, it's great for us as well because Tyke's such a good talker as well. He loves the story about his dad not having a mobile phone. And he's off playing international matches away. He can't get in touch with his dad to let him know how it went. So the more characters like that, the better.
Absolutely. Anybody else before we wrap up for halftime? Another one there and another one here.
Hi Stephen, you're known as a physical lad. Is there any other physical, who's the most physical lad you actually ever played against? That includes training as well?
Physical lad that I trained with or played with or against? Played against. Probably Jerome Kaino, plays for New Zealand, Auckland Blues man, a few years in Japan. There's chat of him possibly signing for a French club, Toulon, is there? Like, he was massive, a beast, like, strong boy, really dead on, down to earth. And I didn't know him, like, but for some reason when we played against each other, there was this kind of mutual respect. And he always thought that I was a great player and vice versa. But yeah, when he was in his prime, like 2011 World Cup, you know, he was a hard hitter. A few illegal challenges along the way. But he was probably him. Yeah.
We'll take one from up the front here just before we wrap up for halftime. And anybody else who has a question, we'll be doing it again at the end. So fear not. We do have a couple of tickets as well to give away for Ireland versus Italy. The big man will be choosing the winner. So.
Cheers. It's a kind of a long-winded question, but this time about James Ryan. Obviously, he's a brilliant player. Whether the comparisons to Paulie are a little bit premature, I don't know. But I don't know if you heard Brian O'Driscoll on the Friday night before the French game. Kind of had an interesting comment about him being really well respected. Kind of put a little bit of cast of doubt whether he can take a kneel. He was injured for this game on Saturday, and I wanted to know whether you thought that was maybe a comment on the modern day second row not having enough dog in them compared to back in the day, or is it maybe kind of a positive, maybe slightly encouraging call out to Ryan to toughen up a little bit?
Yeah, that's really interesting because we spoke to Mal O'Kelly, who was like teak tough. He's still absolutely massive as well. By the way.
But he's fat now though. Like he's not massive. Like
He's just a giant frame. He was playing for Malahide up until last season. I think I would not have enjoyed playing against him, to be honest. But anyway, he kind of subtly made that point. He said, "Look at Devin Toner. Devin Toner never gets injured. He injures people."
Durable.
He said durability is a massive thing for a second row, and I think there was a subtle suggestion that sometimes you just have to
tough it up.
You just have to deal with the injury, play through the injury. Like the game has slightly changed as well, though. Like they're being managed to an unbelievable degree, and they probably don't get allowed to do it as much. But there is a point there, though.
I just think the way the game's going, like Ian Henderson can play in the back row. Ryan for me could definitely play in the back row. I just think the more athletes that you have on the pitch, the better. Long gone the days of just second rows that run around just hitting rucks and making sure that they win line out ball and hit rucks. That's kind of all they done. And I think he's so young as well. And yes, he has had a couple of niggles. He's missed games. Played for Ireland before he played for Leinster senior team. But like he captained the Irish under-20 side in a World Cup final against England. He's got a lot of unbelievable attributes. And for me, it's I'd keep the reins on him. I wouldn't be. I have a bit of a niggle. Get out there, suck it up. To me, he seems like a pretty smart fella as well. If he's in the back of his mind, he's not 100%, then you could go out and let down your side or let down your team, and you might not get selected for another year or two. So for me, it's not about toughening up. It's about managing your own body and knowing what's right and wrong. And I just think he's got just such a big future ahead of him, and I think him and Henderson could be a bit like O'Callaghan-O'Connell for the next 5 or 6 years for sure.
You mentioned James Ryan playing for Ireland before Leinster. O'Driscoll did as well. Do you know who the other one was? Does anyone know?
No.
Michael Bent.
Unbelievable.
But yeah, he's an exceptional talent, James Ryan. I think
Michael's making 100 caps for Leinster this weekend.
He's done well. Just in terms of James Ryan, I think managing when he's in the early stage of his career is probably sensible at this stage.
Yeah, I'd definitely keep the reins on him. He took a piss next to my tent at electric picnic a couple of years ago. That is half time. Thanks a million. If you want to go for a pint, whatever, work away. We'll be back in about 10-15 minutes. Take your time. We'll kick off the second half. Look, Italy this weekend, Conor O'Shea. See, like, on the face of it, I think it looks like they're making a little bit of progress under him, but also I heard a stat there during the week where, like, if they go throughout this tournament without a win, which they likely will, it'll be the first time since they joined the Six Nations that will have happened, and therefore you're kind of thinking statistically they're going backwards. What has your impression of his tenure been, or his tenure so far been?
Like, he said today they have to celebrate small wins. They can't actually celebrate actual wins in test matches. They know that if Ireland play anywhere near their potential, they're going to get beaten. He said, if I go into my players and say, listen, lad, great photo by the way. Listen, lads, we're going to beat Ireland. They'll laugh in my face. You know, he's very realistic about the job at hand. I think they have made little bits of progress. You can see even the try against England, the first one, the loose head prop is making a lovely pass to Andrea Lavodi out the back door. Then Alan goes over the top, and I think we also have to judge them on their club's performances. Like, that's the big thing for them. You talk about starting at the foundations with Ulster. Italy have to start at those foundations, and Treviso in particular have improved. I think they put together 4 wins in a row in the Pro 14 at one stage, and he's spent a lot of his time working with those clubs. It's actually a director of rugby role, really, more so than the head coach. So I think it's going to take a couple of years for that to pay off at the top level. He is excited about some of those young guys coming through, but I think they're quite a distance off, and if Ireland don't put a massive win on them, it'll be a huge shock.
I think Ireland over the last 3 games, home and away, have averaged 49 points. Scoring against Italy, so like if I was a betting man, I would probably go close to that again on Saturday. I just can't see any player, bar maybe Parise on a really good day, who's better than any of the Irish guys. The game plan, like Conor O'Shea gets a lot of credit, but like the Treviso team, like Benetton, they're being coached by, is it a Kiwi?
Kieran Crowley.
Yeah, Kieran Crowley. I think like Conor's almost, he's kind of taken a bit of the credit for the way that, you know, Benetton's played. Right. But, you know, that... Or
he's getting a bit of the credit.
He hasn't taken it. He's getting a bit of that credit, but we haven't really seen that in the Italian display there against England. Yes, we've seen bits and pieces, but, you know, England were always going to run out big winners. So for me, I just think Italy, and if I was involved in any team, it wouldn't... Like if my coach turned around to me and goes, right lads, we know we're not going to win this one, but it's all about, you know, winning the small battles. I'd look at him and go, are you mad? It's like, we play to win. It's as simple as that. And any Italians that you speak with, you play to, you know, they're emotional, they're passionate, and I'd say, you know, a lot of the guys in the changing rooms believe if they pull out their best performance individually to a man, that they could beat Ireland. There could be an upset. There's going to be an upset somewhere. And you know, that wouldn't sit well with me, like, you know, being told that we're not good enough lads to beat Ireland, but, you know, I'm not sure about that.
Coaches are always like, he's buying time essentially for himself as well, kind of maybe talking about we'll win down the line. But yeah, it is frustrating that it's the same issues again. Like, you know, they get to 60 minutes and they get blown away by England kind of changing their game plan. Let's offload, let's turn up the tempo. He did mention that again, the fitness has got better, he says. But we haven't really seen it. Like, let's see them last an actual 80-minute match.
That's it, exactly, because there was such an inevitability about the fact that once we got to the hour mark against England, now I know you thought England were extremely impressive, we'll get to them in a while, but like, it was just so obvious that the Italians were going to crumble again, probably similar to ourselves in Rome last year, where, Jesus, I don't know, Craig Gilroy scored a hat-trick in the last half hour anyway, wasn't it? Like, or second half. So
It always happens, and we just need to see progress on the pitch, because, you know, there's other nations like Georgia have been knocking on the door for years, and it gets harder and harder to say no to them. Obviously, Italy need to be there competing against the best nations to improve, but it must be hard for Georgia to look on and see they haven't actually improved on the pitch despite all this talk. It must be frustrating.
I think Conor O'Shea coming in there, I think he's got a great vision of where he wants Italy to go, and he talks well about that, but it's actually implementing that and putting that in place. And what does everybody judge him on? Results. And if he goes 40 points, 40 points, 40 points, 40 points, you know, people are going to go, what on earth is going on here? You know, and for me, that vision, I hope, comes through to him, because I think he's a really good guy. I don't know him, but he comes across as a really good guy and a realistic guy. So yeah, let's see how they get on Saturday.
Is there a risk then that because it is this vision and it is very much long term, that he's waiting for a sort of an almost all-encompassing change to be implemented by bringing over like the likes of Michael Bradley and these people, and that by, I suppose, not affecting what's going on the pitch in the immediate future, like he probably runs into a brick wall at some point? So like systemically it might change, and say 7 years down the line they might be a little bit, or at least semi-competitive, but by then it'll be too late for him to even see that change take place.
Like in 7 years' time, if results don't go his way, he'll not be in a job.
No, but that's, yeah.
Like international rugby is a results-driven, environment, and like he can't go to Six Nations without getting a result. That's just not going to happen. So he talks about all these, battles and everything else, but one interesting point that he made in his post-match interview was that he said, at least we're starting to play some proper rugby. So I think goes back to that crazy tactic that they used against England to try and even come close to winning the game, which they were never going to do. But instead of coming up with these stupid ideas, they actually play a bit of rugby, play a brand of rugby, and if they can kind of get that going, because they did have a lot of possession against the English.
Yeah, they did.
If they can get that going, then maybe a result or two will come over the next couple of years. But I think they're going to be up against it for the next couple of weeks anyway.
Yeah. You'd just love to see Sergio Parise get a couple of wins as well before he bows out. Like, I'd say he's getting extremely impatient. Another thing is disappointing not seeing McKinley maybe involved, coming back. It would have been a nice return. But O'Shea said today, listen, I'm not going to pick him just because it's a romantic pick. And I think Ian McKinley responded pretty well. He said, I want to give you a headache further down the line, but a bit of a shame not to see him involved, I think.
Absolutely. Well, I mistakenly said in the first half that Ireland's defence wouldn't be tested. We are doing defences now.
We're doing defence now.
We're doing defence now. But we mentioned him earlier as well, and it was you who was explaining it to me earlier before we came on, how integral Rob Kearney is to the kind of defence that Ireland is playing.
Yeah. Like, Ireland have kind of slightly adapted. Like, we don't expect them to get their defence tested very severely in this match, certainly. But further down the line, they're still working towards that system. We talked about that back three, getting to know each other a little bit better. I think this is one area. They've kind of slightly altered how they work in the backfield in the defence. We're going to take a look at a couple of examples from the match against France. This is actually from the very first kick-off, and we'll see all Ireland fall into the structure. Conor Murray clears the kick. You see CJ Sander with his hand up there. They get a good kick chase, which is always a strength for them. They want to get beyond that halfway and meet them. And we noticed Conor Murray just in here. He's kind of falling into that traditional kind of sweeper role, just in behind the line, and you maybe expect him to stay in that position. What happens actually is France come back to the right here, and by now you can see Conor Murray, he's up in the defensive line. And like, he's such a good defender, he's such a big scrum half. It makes sense, like Ruan Pienaar is probably a guy like that as well. It makes sense to have him up there making tackles. You see what happens here. Good communication from Furlong inside him. Murray puts Cameron into touch. Immediately Ireland are getting a chance to attack. And they've put him into the defensive line. You see him here. It's a kind of multi-phase attack. He's in the line straight away every single time. Ireland actually get 13 defenders in their defensive line now. That's kind of the change you see on the outside edge there as well. And Murray's making these tackles. Look, there he is again. Low tackle. Furlong comes in high. They win another advantage line. But just in behind the defensive line, we're going to see here. I don't know if you can see. Just Keith Earls is here, and then off screen is Rob Kearney back here. So 13 in the front line. Fill it up with bodies and let two guys patrol the backfield a little bit deeper than you would generally have your wingers sitting off maybe. And we're going to look at the kind of overview. This is what you're looking at from the Ireland defensive line.
From a coaching perspective, like playing against Ireland, you got the chip is on all the time. Like, exactly. It has to be on all the time. And if Conor Murray's in the front line, a lot of the times when Ruan Pienaar got into the front line, it was more to put pressure on the out half who's going to kick.
Yeah.
So Ruan never really put in massive tackles like Conor Murray. For me, it's only a matter of time until teams go, right, hold on a second, and it's not once. You could do it 5 or 6 times a game and get a bit of change out of it. So
yeah, like
yes, it works against France, but like, the Italians are going to be looking at this.
That's the really interesting test. Maybe against England, against Wales or Scotland, who have that attacking chip game. Finn Russell.
You've got two men in the back line for England that could potentially do that as well, like as opposed to this conventional one.
Exactly. So you have those two defenders in the backfield, but you can see that space there. Like, it's a big old space. And in traditional kind of defensive setup, if we just click onto our next slide, just here, you'd have the fullback sitting in there, and then if France attacks this side, the winger on that side can move up, the fullback goes around, you get that pendulum motion. It's a lot more difficult to do when you're here with two guys in the backfield. This winger shoots up here when France attacks that side, and they have to cover all that space. Now, one of the things, if we go on and look at a couple of more examples, that Rob Kearney gives you is that really good positional play. He's in here, he's one of those guys in the backfield, and he's on that right-hand side of the pitch. Jacob Stockdale is on the far side in the backfield. Ireland make a couple of tackles in midfield. You can see there already, Kearney's moving across. He's trying to both cover that chip space and get across, so that when Stockdale comes up here, he can be in that left-hand side role in the backfield. It's a huge demand on one guy, but Joe Schmidt loves Rob Kearney's positional play. You see Conor Murray, there he is again, in the line making a tackle. And by the time France come on to this next phase, there's Jacob Stockdale. He's come up from the backfield. Rob Kearney's gone all the way across here, and now Keith Earls has dropped into this position, so they still have those two in the backfield. And France play to the edge. Again, good read from Rob Kearney. He gets all the way up. We see him on the edge here and makes that tackle. But it's a lot of ground to cover for a 15. And when you have been doing that all match, here he is again, he's going to try and cover that chip space, and he's going to get it all the way across there. When you've been doing that all game, the opposition just needs one chance, as you say. Someone like George Ford and Owen Farrell. And you see the Ireland line speed, they've got those 13 men in the line. There's the advantage. Look, big hit behind the gain line. Yeah. But we go a couple more phases on, and there you go. Look, Rob Kearney's just maybe slightly switched off. He's out of shot just back here. And there's the space. A really good 10. There's Bello, he's inexperienced. A really good 10 there demands the ball. He gets one of his outside backs chasing through onto that chip, and they exploit that space. Instead, France, carry it up again, and there's that low chop tackle, brilliant from James Ryan, really good technique. They get the turnover. But I think you're right. I think that space is there, and that's going to be a really interesting battle for Ireland going against those big teams. We did want to just look at the try as well. Very different circumstances, obviously. France played that quick line out to Dupont here. And you talk about guys rushing up out of line. Murray makes that decision there, and he doesn't make the tackle. However, there should still be that secondary chase line.
They've got a great chasing line there. They have a good secondary line there.
Beautifully set up.
Look, beautifully set up. Just make a wrong decision.
Yeah, and the issue is like we talk about that, why you play the same backline again. It's just familiarity. So it's actually just here on the edge. It's Rob Kearney and Bundy Aki. And they're in great position there. But just as they advance up, you can see Aki just kind of eases off and Kearney goes up ahead of him. So suddenly they're just slightly disconnected, aren't they? And what really should be, Conor Murray gets stepped there, or really should be a 2-on-2 there, actually becomes a 2-on-1 because Kearney's shoulders slightly come in. Is he getting much chat from Bundy Aki? We don't know, but Dupont is able to put Teddy Thomas away down the touchline. Jacob Stockdale probably gets caught in his heels, probably needs to go and own that space a little bit, but it just points to that slight lack of familiarity between Kearney and Aki, and that's a big challenge.
Because Kearney is a famously good communicator. I mean, we've heard, you'll get it all the time, presumably going to Leinster pressers where the likes of Larmour or Carbery, if he's playing, not so much Carbery, but if Larmour is playing 15, on the wing and Kearney is 15, he will wax lyrical about how Kearney guides him, and he tells him, literally, if it's a case of take two steps backwards. And the young guys at Leinster listen to Kearney so well, and presume Schmidt is quite fond of that as well, having Kearney there. So with Aki, is it literally a case of, because he hasn't been in the team for long, that he's just not? Whereas I suppose Kearney will be verbal with young guys. Maybe when he's playing for Ireland, he doesn't need to be quite so verbal because people are so familiar with each other, you almost don't need to say it. And Aki is new. I
think you still need that communication all the time. Interesting to hear from you what Rob is like in that backfield, because you need that assurance, don't you?
It's been a long time since I played with Rob, but I think covering that amount of mileage in the backfield is going to take its toll, not only physically but mentally. So when a ball is kicked like that, Rob's just coming up, he's filling a hole, he's probably absolutely knackered. You're coming towards the end of the game, and he just makes a decision to hit in. You know that you're going to have inside support there, and Rob's bound to know that he's the last man. So why would Rob hit in there? And I think it's probably poor communication between Rob, Bundy, and whoever else is in that secondary line. But Rob's got to know that he's the last man on the end of the line, and there's only one guy outside him. And Jacob Stockdale, everybody's giving him a hard time about not catching him. He has to turn and go. The other guy's running 3/4 pace before he gets into 5th gear to put his head down for the post. But Jacob has to stop and go. Like we all know, watch Jacob Stockdale scored and tries this season. He's a very fast guy, but so's Teddy Thomas. You know, he is electric. So I just think that's a good try for the French. You know, one small little mistake at the top level can cost you 7 points, and it did. And again, it's just about learning from it. And again, should the kick have went into touch? Yeah. Possibly. Get it off the field, reset, go again.
Yeah. Like your point about the fatigue in Carney is really important, because we just looked at him covering so much ground. And as that develops in games, it's going to be really interesting to see how teams look to exploit it. Like, that's obviously unrelated to his backfield play, but it is a cumulative effect of running a lot of meters across the pitch. It'll be really interesting to see his GPS data and see if it's changed a lot. But I think it's going to put a big stress on Ireland with those two in the backfield. It's going to be fascinating to see how teams look to exploit it.
I remember, like, this time last year, we were doing something down in Cork, and at the time the discussion, probably typically because we were in Cork, was that Simon Zebo was a better 15 than Rob Kearney anyway at that juncture, respectively, in their careers. With Zebo out of the picture, I suppose it's easy to suggest, yeah, Kearney is the guy there, considering Larmour hasn't played for Ireland yet. But where do you stand on Rob Kearney now? Because he's a man who obviously gives enormous effort. He's been there long enough. He's done incredible things in the Irish jersey. Just takes a lot of flack publicly, I guess. Like, do you still think he's an elite level, international caliber 15?
Yeah, he's world class. Like, he made one small error, and that was just a miscommunication. The rest of the game, I thought he was top drawer. Some of the covering that he made with a hack through, and I thought, like, he is an unbelievable player. He is rock solid, and the thing I like about Rob is he does all his talking on the pitch. You very rarely hear him off the pitch doing interviews, and everybody criticises him all the time. He doesn't have the X factor like Simon Zebo. Like, I think Simon Zebo is a world class player also, but Rob Kearney for me is a Rolls Royce. Like, makes very few mistakes, and in international rugby, whoever makes the fewest mistakes in a match will win it, and that's what it boils down to.
So Zebo, sorry, go on.
The things he does are less glamorous. Like, you mentioned that covering when James Ryan kind of forced an offload, they had through. Unbelievably composed. He gathers it one-handed, gets up, rides a challenge, lets guys get back round. You see him in the air a few times. Some of his running lines as well. We looked at kind of bad decoy plays. Every time he gets the line right, he hits rucks well. Little things like that Schmidt loves. So, like, I think he offers so much and also gives great interviews. You mentioned he didn't talk much, but he's a good speaker, so the longer he lasts, the better.
If Zebo was, I suppose, a feasible option, I mean, he probably technically is, but if he wasn't kind of out of the reckoning for moving away, and the decision was yours, based on current form, I suppose, for provinces, you still pick Kearney over Zebo at the moment?
If I was picking a team to play against Italy this weekend, I think probably rest Rob Kearney and play Simon Zebo. You know, where you're in a Grand Slam decider in Twickenham and Paddy's Day on the 17th of March.
Can't wait for that, actually. Yeah. The slam is on.
The slam's on. I would probably pick Rob Kearney. You know, so it's just different guys. Like, they're completely different. Like, you know, they really are. And Simon's publicly come out and said that he can't play the way Joe's kind of structure. He's publicly come out and said that. So, but yeah, I think Simon's a fantastic player also. Like, yeah.
Fair enough. We'll take a couple of more questions from you guys. I know, speaking to some of you at the break there, you had some interesting ones. Don't bottle it now. It's your time. It's your time.
Down
There's
the back,
a couple of hands down the back there.
You're beating the All Blacks the first week, and just beating the French for the fourth time in their history. So we're lacking consistency going in. We have consistency going into the World Cup. We're going to bring those games together when we get to the World Cup. How is that going to translate into performances? Historically, we haven't had that consistency once we've had good performances into the World Cup. But how are we going to bring these games into the World Cup so that we can actually get past it to the quarter-final stage like we haven't done before?
Yeah, like, great question. I think it's really interesting that since the last World Cup, the massive focus for Ireland has been depth. They always talk about it. I think we've seen them develop that. Like, think back to that Argentina match. Yeah, they did have a shocker of a first 20 minutes, but like, you're missing Johnny Sexton, you're missing Paul O'Connell, who's your defensive line leader. You're missing Jared Payne, Sean O'Brien, Peter O'Mahony, like, unbelievably important players, and they just didn't have the backup. Like, the guys who came in obviously battled hard, but the next layer of quality wasn't quite there. So we talk about consistency. I think Joe Schmidt's teams are quite consistent in their performance. They're always at a high level. They may not always be 100%, but they're always up 95, 96. And I think now they have that depth. You've seen Andrew Porter come in, he's ready. You've seen James Ryan come in, he's ready. Stockdale, I think Larmour is ready. Like, all these guys who have come in have actually added to the squad. And I think if they were to suffer unbelievable injuries like that again in the next World Cup, I think they'd probably manage it a bit better. Yeah,
I totally agree. I think it's important to kind of emphasise the fact that it doesn't matter if it's business or rugby. Like, if you take 4 leaders or 4 senior managers out of this pub, it's probably not going to function as well as it would when they have those guys there. So, like, when those 4 guys were missing, Johnny Sexton, obviously the leader of them all, for me, I always thought they were going to struggle. Listen, I thought, like every other Irish fan, that they were going to win it. Yeah. But, it just didn't happen. So I totally agree with your point. Strength and depth. If Johnny for some reason went down, I think everybody could turn to Joey or turn to Keats or whoever's going to be ready at that time and say that he'll be able to do the job. But Joe is going to be judged on this next World Cup. I think he's going to have a lot of pressure on his shoulders. And yeah, like, all these games for a lot of Irish fans, yes, of course they matter, but everybody just wants to see Ireland break history records and get the semi-finals and get the final, because we all know that's what they're capable of. For me, Ireland, England and New Zealand obviously are the 3 teams to beat in world rugby, full stop. So it would be an absolute shame if Ireland didn't reach a semi-final in Japan come 2019. And I think that's what Joe's going to get judged on come that time.
I'd say he breathed a sigh of relief when he saw Scotland getting hammered by Wales, because in November they look pretty good and you have them in your pool and you're kind of wondering, geez.
Well, that's what they get for not voting for Ireland for the World Cup bid. That's what they get. Wales are going to get it this week.
Anybody else?
Last 2 championships back to back, and also winning 23 of the last 24 games with the forward Farrell axis. Do you think there's scope for Ireland to maybe implement a similar view and having 2 playmakers or 2 distributors in the back line?
Yeah, I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I think there is scope for it, but the way that Joe Schmidt has been picking his team, I'm not sure he's 100% sold on his 12 and 13. Like, everybody's crying out for Robbie Henshaw to play 15, and everybody's crying out for other guys to come in and play 12, and when Ringrose is fit, is he going to be playing 13? And it just kind of seems like that 12-13 combination is a little bit up in the air. But I would go back and say if England had a couple of better options at 12 and 13, that probably Farrell would be playing 10. And yes, that combination has worked well over the last number of games. But I've watched Ford regularly playing for Leicester, and he really, really struggles. Like, I just don't see this complete polished out half that competes well in an English jersey. I think so much of all England's incredible play comes through Farrell, because I think Farrell is a class above nearly every other out half in the world, bar maybe Johnny Sexton. So yeah, of course there is scope there. I'm not sure who would slot in at 12, but yeah, I don't think there's anybody as good at passing 12 as Owen Farrell at the minute.
Yeah, he's magic. I think it was interesting though on the Lions tour, like Farrell went, he almost usurped Johnny and went into that first test as 10, but they had to turn to Johnny in the end to kind of come back and control the team. I don't know if Farrell really handled that 10 position really well on that tour. Obviously it's unbelievably difficult against the All Blacks, and I think he works really well just having that little bit extra time. Like, you talk about his distribution, like some of the lines that England are running off are incredible, and to be able to do that one set of hands out the line is unbelievably effective. Like, we kind of mentioned it there, I think Johnny Sexton gets frustrated at times that there's not someone else making those decisions further out the line, and Robbie Henshaw's probably not comfortable yet doing that. Joey Carbery is the obvious one. Like, I'd love to see the two of them on the pitch, even if it's for 20 minutes at the end of the match. I'm sure Johnny's going to come off and they'll take care of him, but I think it would be brilliant to see the two of them and not all that responsibility on Johnny. Maybe he can just distribute sometimes, and Carbery is built to shape around himself further out the line. Just a different picture for the attacking line.
You see Robbie and you see Bundy, you know, when they don't take the ball to the line, they fall off their passes. You know, you watch Owen Farrell, he goes to the line, he's throwing bullets, you know, to the players coming onto it. But just to go back, like Johnny Sexton, Owen Farrell, when I was on the Lions tour, doing a bit of work over there, and one of the players was in the in-goal area, and Farrell was in the in-goal area, and Sexton was on the halfway line. and they were kicking, so that he would kick, then he would kick, and the ball was literally on a sixpence for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And I went, geez, this is impressive. And then they started doing it with drop kicks, and they would drop kick the ball to each other, drop kick, back and forth, 40, 50 metres, and like literally straight into their hands. They didn't have to move, they didn't have to break stride. And I was just looking at this going, these two guys are, this is crazy. Like, if that was me, and then I've fallen on my arse, the ball would go miles over that way. It'd just be a complete disaster. So, like, I heard the similar, very, very similar story with O'Gara and Wilkinson when they were on the Lions tour together, that they were doing exactly the same thing. So, all that practice paid off with a 45-metre drop goal on Saturday, didn't it?
Yeah, but Ireland have said they considered, I think, bringing Joey onto the pitch and doing it. And as you say, like, two kickers, like, that's another thing. It's not just the passing, it's having another kicking option at the back. Even against France, there were probably times where they could have put it in, even a grubber on a wet day, slide it on the ground, make it difficult for Jeffrey Pallis on his debut for France. They didn't have that out the line. You know, Robbie Henshaw's not really that comfortable doing it. So I think it's a good point. And I think it would be good for Ireland just to test it out even for 20 minutes.
Yeah, I'd love to see it happen. Anybody else there?
So, can you hear me? There you go.
Yeah, we can, yeah.
Just regards to development, you were kind of talking about Conor O'Shea there, and he might not see any of the fruition from the work he's putting in. But the Leinster Academy seem to be pumping out a lot of players, and you see Larmour now in the team. And I was looking at the under-20s, there's, I think, 15 in the match day, 23. Just with regards to Ulster and the academy, would they look at copying like what's in Leinster, or if Stephen was in charge there, what would he do?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of the coaches actually have went back and forth. We look at Johnny Bell over the years at Ulster, went down to New Zealand to kind of learn from them, and they kind of piggyback on each other. But for me, like, if the Leinster Academy model blueprint is working, why would you not just try and implement exactly the same structure? And I think maybe, you know, with the comments that Bryn Cunningham made there during the week about Ulster Rugby, that's something that they will do. That's something that they're gonna look at and look at who's doing it well and try and not copy it, but put their own style onto it. But the academy at the minute with Ulster, it seems just seems like it's been the same for the last 4 or 5 years. You know, we're not producing. Yeah, you get a diamond once or twice a year, and that's it. Where there seems to be diamonds just coming off the conveyor belt at Leinster. You know, it's just insane. And I go back to touching the point about all the YDOs that were relieved of their jobs. Where Leinster just seemed to be adding more people to the Leinster machine that just keeps ticking along, and they need to not only put money into that, but they need to get people to buy into it. But there's talk now of the youth. Is it going to be disbanded, done away with? Is
the youth system?
The youth system, yeah.
We discussed it a bit. I think
like, which would be, like, I came through the youth system, Seanie O'Brien came through the youth system, Shane Horgan, I think, came through the youth system. Like, if that was done away with...
I do think if you were trying to look in other areas, as well as that, like you mentioned population earlier on, like that is a factor definitely with Leinster, no matter what, but it's not the only factor. Like you talk about the Leinster Academy, but the Leinster Academy is almost the Leinster Schools Cup now. Like the players coming out of there are unbelievably well prepared. If you're in St. Michael's, you're in on 7 a.m. in the morning doing your scrum half passing, analysis at lunchtime, out for a session in the evening, and probably analysis after that as well.
But you have Methody, and you've Campbell, and you've Inst, and you've Regent.
Christians and Prez as well, they were in the house down south.
And
are they tapping into that enough though? Are they Stuart Lancaster's out doing...
I believe they are, but I don't believe they're doing it right.
Yeah.
You know, so they're getting in, they're lifting weights at 7 o'clock in the morning. But what is actually, why are you getting in to lift weights? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to get bigger? Are you nursing an injury? Well, this is what you have to do. Instead of getting in and just throwing around tin, and there's not really any, any focus behind it of what you're trying to achieve. You know, and I think that's where Leinster have got to bang on. Leinster they're employing guys in the school rugby just to come in and coach rugby, and get paid well, but they're doing a freaking fantastic job, and they're a feeder to the Leinster team, so it's working great.
And they're all playing a great brand of rugby. Like go down to Donnybrook, and the matches are unbelievably entertaining. The shape that they use in attack is literally the same as any professional team. And you talk about those YDOs, but Leinster have really, they've dripped everything down from the professional level down into the schools, and they're basically set up to play like Leinster play. Like Stuart Lancaster's going out and doing seminars.
I read that interview last week with one of the Michael's coaches, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was giving an interview.
Like, once you're getting that, as you say, get that methodology into that level of rugby, and it's going to pay off in a few years.
Cool. Anyone else before we... oh, there's one here. Just, well, whichever order. Oh, yeah.
You mentioned that we saw the World Cup when 4 big players go down, that there wasn't a huge amount of people coming behind them. Now we've got a fairly good amount of depth in most positions, but behind Conor Murray there isn't really a huge amount. We saw Luke McGrath not getting used at the weekend, and now he's not even on the bench anymore. Schmidt doesn't really play his sub-scrum halves before the 75th minute. Are Luke McGrath and Kieran Marmion not good enough, or like they show for Connacht and Leinster that they can do it in Europe? What seems to be going on?
Yeah. They're not as good as Conor Murray.
No.
And that's why Conor Murray's on ahead of them. And you know, in such a tight game, Conor Murray was making those tackles, and like that pass to Johnny Sexton on 82 minutes 38 seconds, like landed absolutely perfectly. Yeah. And that's why he stayed on the pitch. Do you know? I believe Joe does trust the other scrum halves, and they will be given opportunities. But like, if a World Cup quarter-finals being played and Johnny Sexton's not playing and Conor Murray's not playing and Luke McGrath is, and whoever the 10 is at that time, I still think they should have enough experience in their team to get a win, no matter who they played.
Is there an argument to be made, like, so you mentioned there that Murray is so good and therefore you leave him on it, like he's integral for 80 minutes if you can keep him on for 80 minutes, but that the other two are actually ready. I mean, I can't help but think of when Marmion comes on the wing against Australia and does a job, and like, I know Schmidt was down to his bare bones at that point, but he still trusted him to go on to the wing against a very physical winger and do a job. Like, is it just that maybe we won't necessarily see them as often prove that they're ready, and when they're called upon that they might actually be ready on the day?
Yeah, I suppose there aren't many test matches where you can really experiment. He's talking about doing it in Australia. I think we'll probably see Tyburn come in. We'll probably see Marmion or McGrath get an actual start. But they're in the middle of this championship. They have to win every game. They're not thinking about development now. I think like the pressure's on McGrath and Marmion themselves as well, just to get up to Murray's level on like box kick, on consistency of pass, on being physical and being present in defence as well. Like, they got to get up to his level. The challenge is really on them, and if they're knocking on that door, then Schmidt will definitely give them their chances.
I think we've got one more question up the front here.
We should be able to hear you.
Yeah, we'll be able to. Yeah, work away.
You were saying earlier about how you've got James Ryan and Ian Henderson and other people being able to play multiple positions, and again, like, you've got Farrell who can play 10 and 12 and stuff. Do you think there's a bigger emphasis now in rugby on people being able to play multiple positions? And with that, do you think there's a danger that you've got people like Ian Madigan who have been switched around too much and the talent is almost wasted?
Yeah, great question.
That's a problem?
I wouldn't say it's a problem. I think Mads, I just excuse me, I just don't know about Mads, like the way he was kind of brought in to fill Johnny Sexton's boots, the way it all happened. He wasn't given that much game time at 10 playing for his country, so I think in the pack it's different. You have Mario Toji, Courtney Laws, they can jump about, and I think it's completely different. And the exception of Owen Farrell, like, you know, I think he could play anywhere in the back line and still look a class act. So I think there's only maybe a few players out there in World Rugby specifically that could bounce about the back line. And Mads, unfortunately, was one of those players that seemed to just be, you know, the guy that could cover all positions, and so was put on the bench. And I think that's why he ended up making a move, was because he wanted to play 10 and kind of establish himself. And you never know, you might see him back here at some stage. But I think it's a great asset to have if you're able to cover a couple of positions. And yeah, especially in the pack, because if there's a couple of injuries, you know, a back rower could go down in the first 4 or 5 minutes, the back rower comes on, and a second row, just the amount of collisions that there now is in the game, that you got to be able to step in there, and it's great that I think Ireland have those options.
Just on Madigan coming into that quarter final, like, Joe doesn't make many selection mistakes at all, I don't think. Every time someone questions, why the hell is Fergus McFadden on the bench, he comes on and helps them win a match with an unbelievable clear out, a couple of carries.
Scraps.
But if you think, it's all about that. If you think back to before that World Cup though, against Italy that year, like, Ian Keatley played a match at 10, and Madigan could have got a chance there. So I think Schmidt rarely makes those mistakes, but that was one where he didn't give him that exposure at 10.
Do you think Joey Carberry is the answer though if Johnny Sexton went down?
I think he is now. I think Joe really trusts him and he wants him to play 10. I think he mentioned in the presser today, he kind of subtly put a bit of pressure on Leinster. Hopefully he'll get a game next weekend during the break week. I think he wants him to play 10 and he was probably a bit frustrated when he came on that Montpellier match at fullback. But yeah, I think Joey's a good example. Like, is he a 10? Is he going to be switching between 15 and 10? I think he probably wants to settle. Like, he wants to play 10 and hopefully we just see him get more game time there.
But as a player, if you're focusing on a couple of positions, is there a danger then that you'll never become, like you'll never fulfill your potential in one position? Like cross-pollination in sport, but like say John O'Shea or somebody, like versatility can be an asset to a coach, but not necessarily to a player in terms of stepping up to that elite level.
No, like for me, I always had to learn the second row's line-out options. So like, if a second row went down, I had to be thrown in there. But I learned those options because it almost helped me learn my options too, to a certain extent. So it almost made my roles easier for me to learn. So does that answer your question? I don't know. Whoa, what's your question?
It was a stupid question. I'll tell you what.
You're not getting the 2 tickets.
No, I bought that one. That was my chance. Well, yeah. I mean, we'll give away the tickets in a couple of minutes. Let's finish on the championship as a whole. Right, we're off to a decent start. England, Scotland. I mean, Jesus, if Scotland don't have some sort of maniacal Celtic backlash after what went on last weekend, they're in serious trouble. How do you see that going?
Yeah,
you were very impressed by England, of course, at the weekend.
Like you've seen in Scotland, Greg Laidlaw comes back in at 9. I think that says a lot. They're going to kick more. They're going to try and be more solid. You can't just play offloading and counter-attacking rugby at test level. You have to also have those kind of basics covered off. Wales were extremely impressive, and we saw the benefit of that cohesion of the 10 Scarlets players coming in, basically the same game plan, really good decisions from their forwards, whereas Scotland's forwards made poor decisions. Wales are the interesting one. They've kind of emerged as the contenders. Look, England were playing against a poor Italian side, but I thought they were extremely impressive. Like the running lines, even on phase 3, phase 4 of a set piece, they're still running these unbelievable lines. And
forwards are able to give a pass,
Exactly,
it's just like
just
1
multiple
to
options.
15, there's just so many options. Like, they do look very, very dangerous.
We should have known, really, shouldn't we, that the Welsh, like they always do it. Like you write them. I mean, like you can talk about their autumn, you can talk about on the back of line stores, things like that. But like, even though they were decimated, they've won regional side playing unbelievable ball, and all of a sudden they're playing pretty much the same ball at a higher level, arguably, and they're right in the mix now.
Yeah, I think Scotland though, like they'll be possibly slightly embarrassed, like with the way they pitched up. That they know that isn't the Scotland team that's going to pitch up this weekend. They give Wales too many easy outs. Like it just wasn't characteristic of them. And I think with all the talk and all the hype, everybody's been kind of feels like the Scottish lads have been walking around with their chest puffed out since the autumn internationals,
right?
And then bang, they're straight back down to earth again, and they need to get themselves back up a few levels. I believe they'll maybe not come good, but they're going to get better throughout the tournament, and they can't make the same mistakes again for sure.
Is there a chance in Murrayfield for them to just right the wrongs? And
yeah, of course there is. Like they're going to have that massive emotional backlash from being embarrassed, and I think they're always going to get a response. I think he's made smart changes to his team, Gregor Townsend. I think you'll see them be unbelievably scrappy in defence, really aggressive, and yeah, I definitely can see them bouncing back. Alternatively, if they lose, then they've lost all momentum, and they potentially going into that last match against Italy, like playing for a wooden spoon, which will be an absolute disaster considering November. But just in that overall championship, I did like the look of England, and I'm a little bit less confident that Ireland are going to win the championship now. I still back Ireland if they keep everyone fit, especially Johnny. We've seen how important he is, but England do look really sharp.
Are you revising your prediction? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not going to back out.
You're backing England, are you?
I'm not going to back out. I think Ireland will still sneak the championship, but I'm less confident.
What about yourself?
I just think there's something about this Irish team that can really do it. Like we don't have a bad record in Twickenham. Like I've won there myself. Things start going badly. I know we have another few games here to play before we get to that stage on the 17th. But if we get there, like we spoiled England's party last year, like I think the boys can do it. I think they'll keep the momentum going. 3 home games, 3 wins. You're going to Twickenham, Grand Slam on the line. Jeez, I wouldn't like to be an Englishman trying to stop the Irish that day, that's for sure.
I love the sound of that. What do you reckon? Ireland? Yeah, happy enough with that? All right,
Come on, Ireland!
That's what I was looking for. Look at this man's intensity. Like, what are you? My God, you should go down there and. We need to give away a pair of tickets. I've got the questions here. So there was the question from this gentleman here.
Who doesn't have tickets?
Nobody needs. There was the question about John Gibbs and Ulster. There was the most physical player you've either played against or trained with. Question about James Ryan. Ireland's strength and depth was another one. Question about two playmakers. Question about the academy systems. And a question about Conor Murray and Ireland's sub-scrum halves. Was there any that tickle your fancy? Do you want? I'll give you the tickets if you want.
You're probably playmakers.
Oh, just like there he is.
Was it? Yeah.
Well done. Well done, well done. Nice one.
Sorry, I thought that was you. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, that's it. So you both reckon Ireland. Everyone here presumably reckons Ireland. Listen, thanks a million for joining us, folks. Hope you enjoyed yourselves. Who else do we need? They're enjoying themselves. Yeah. After party upstairs, sponsored by Volkswagen. No, I do want to thank Volkswagen for sponsoring us here this evening, and thanks to yourselves. I'm trying to think if there's anything I'm forgetting. I don't believe so. There are a couple of books there just as you came in the door. They are for sale. We'll say nothing like, we just need to ship off the last few, but they're very good read. Not as good as, well, slightly better than Ball and Man.
Ball and Man.
Ball and Man. Man and Ball. Jesus, Ball and Man you talk about. Yeah. Okay, I need to wrap. Thanks a million. Listen, we'll catch you next time. Enjoy the weekend, enjoy the game, and take care. Cheers.